When you have no support, you do not get to make decisions like a man who has somewhere to fall. He can quit recklessly. He can waste 2 years. He can burn money, destroy relationships, and call it betting on himself because somebody may still catch him. You may not have that luxury. That does not make you weaker. It means your decisions must become sharper, more resilient, and far harder to destroy. Your real problem is not simply that nobody is coming. Your problem is that part of you may still be making decisions as though somebody will. You spend the emergency fund because future you will somehow solve it. You walk out before building another source of income because staying feels humiliating. You trust one client, one employer, one partner, one platform, one opportunity, because admitting how dependent you are would wound your pride. Then, when the structure breaks, you call it bad luck. Machiavelli had a colder standard. In The Prince, he wrote that it was better to follow the real truth of the matter than the imagination of it. That is the first discipline of decision-making. Reality. And reality is especially unforgiving when you have no safety net. There is also a psychological trap working against you. Kahneman and Tversky's prospect theory showed that when people perceive themselves as facing losses, they can become more willing to gamble to escape those losses. In plain language, when a man feels cornered, humiliated, behind, or desperate, his mind may become attracted to the reckless move that promises to erase the pain quickly. That is why unsupported men cannot afford emotional decision-making disguised as courage. Because one bad decision does not just cost you money, it can cost you years, your reputation, your negotiating position, your ability to walk away, your confidence in your own judgment. And sometimes the most dangerous decision does not look reckless at all. It looks loyal, patient, brave, independent. Near the end, I will give you the no rescue test, 3 questions that will tell you whether a major decision is making you stronger or merely creating another situation from which you will eventually need to be saved. But first, the rules. Rule 1. Never risk survival for ego. There is risk that creates opportunity, and there is risk that merely proves you are emotional. Know the difference. A man humiliates you, so you quit before you have another income source. You tell yourself you are standing up for yourself. You tell yourself no one disrespects you. You tell yourself you are choosing freedom. But if the move leaves you unable to pay rent, unable to think clearly, and forced to beg for another weak position, that was not freedom. Your pride just made a financial decision. Your business is failing, so you put your final savings into one desperate bet, because admitting the model is broken feels worse than losing everything. You call it belief, you call it conviction, you call it going all in. But sometimes going all in is not courage. Sometimes it is ego refusing to accept feedback. The unsupported man has to learn the difference between intelligent risk and emotional risk. Intelligent risk has a structure. It has a way to survive being wrong. Emotional risk is different. Emotional risk wants the pain gone now. It wants humiliation erased now. It wants doubt silenced now. It wants the world to respect a move before the move has proven anything. Ask one question before any major decision. If nobody ever saw this decision, would I still make it? If the answer changes when nobody is watching, status may be driving the decision. That question will expose more weakness than most men can tolerate. Because many decisions are not made for freedom. They are made for performance. They are made so someone finally sees you as bold, independent, dangerous, serious, different. But if the decision destroys your foundation, you did not become dangerous. You became easier to break. Do not risk survival merely to preserve the image. The unsupported man needs courage. But courage without survivability is theater. Rule 2. Build the exit before you need the exit. Weak men wait until they hate the situation. Strategic men prepare while the situation is still tolerable. Savings before resignation. Portfolio before negotiation. New clients before losing the old one. Relationships before desperation. Skills before redundancy. This is where most men sabotage themselves. They wait until anger provides enough emotional energy to act. They wait until the job insults them one more time. They wait until the client disrespects them one more time. They wait until the relationship becomes unbearable. They wait until the situation becomes so painful that movement finally feels necessary. But anger is expensive. By the time you desperately need an exit, everyone involved can feel your weakness. The employer knows you need the salary. The client knows you need the contract. The partner knows you fear being alone. The market knows you are rushing. Desperation changes negotiation. You may say the same words, but they land differently when the other side knows you cannot walk away. You may ask for the same raise, pitch the same offer, request the same boundary, or demand the same respect. But without alternatives, your voice carries less weight, not because you are less intelligent, not because you are less worthy, but because leverage is not created by your feelings. Leverage is created by options. Freedom is rarely created at the moment you leave. It is built quietly during the months when you still have the option to stay. That is the part unsupported men hate, because quiet preparation does not feel dramatic. Nobody applauds the man building his savings. Nobody praises the man improving his portfolio after work. Nobody sees the man making contacts before he needs them. Nobody celebrates the man learning the skill that will make him harder to replace. But power is often built before anyone notices. Never ask only, "Can I leave?" Ask what must exist before leaving becomes cheap. Because the goal is not to escape one cage and fall into another. The goal is to move from weakness into options. Rule 3. Separate, reversible from irreversible decisions. Jeff Bezos faced a dangerous problem as Amazon became enormous. Large organizations become slow because every decision starts receiving heavyweight treatment. His solution was simple. Some decisions are one-way doors, others are two-way doors. A one-way door is difficult to reverse. Once you walk through, you may not return to the same life, the same reputation, the same finances, the same trust, or the same position. A two-way door is different. You can test, learn, adjust, and return without destroying the structure of your life. The lesson is not to copy Amazon. The lesson is to stop using one decision speed for every problem. Taking a small freelance project is reversible. Testing a business offer is reversible. Publishing your first piece of content is reversible. Trying a new skill is reversible. Sending a serious proposal is reversible. Most men move too slowly here because they are afraid of looking like beginners. They overthink the reversible decision. They ask everyone for opinions. They wait for certainty. They hide behind research. They tell themselves they are being strategic when they are really protecting their ego from small public mistakes. But then the same man moves too quickly when the decision is irreversible. Signing crushing debt is a different category. Destroying your professional reputation is a different category. Giving away ownership is a different category. Burning a relationship without necessity is a different category. Leaving without enough runway when nobody can rescue you is a different category. Move fast when being wrong is cheap. Slow down when being wrong changes the architecture of your life. That is intelligent aggression, not hesitation. The unsupported man does not need to be slow. He needs to be precise. He needs to know where speed creates information and where speed creates damage. He needs to stop treating every small move like a life sentence and stop treating every life sentence like a motivational decision. Because when you have no support, one irreversible mistake can become a tax on your future. And the next danger is even colder. Even if you make the right decision at the right speed, you can still lose if one person controls whether you survive. Rule 4. Never depend on a single gatekeeper. Machiavelli was obsessed with dependence. In The Prince, he repeatedly warned rulers about relying on forces they did not truly control. His judgment on auxiliary forces was savage. If they lose, you are ruined. If they win, you can become dependent on them. In his words, winning, one is their captive. Translate that into your life. One employer controls all your income. One client controls your business. One platform controls your audience. One supplier controls your operation. One person controls whether you feel wanted. One gatekeeper controls access to your future. You may look stable. You are not stable. You are concentrated. And concentration becomes weakness when the other side knows you cannot walk away. This is not paranoia. This is structure. The employer does not need to hate you to control you. He only needs to know you have no alternative. The client does not need to be cruel to squeeze you. He only needs to sense that losing him would panic you. The platform does not need to target you. It only needs to change one rule, one algorithm, one policy, and your entire audience can become unreachable. The partner does not need to be malicious. He only needs to know that loneliness makes you negotiate against yourself. The goal is not paranoid self-sufficiency. That is another form of fragility. The goal is redundancy. Multiple skills, multiple relationships, multiple routes to market, cash reserves, an audience you can reach directly, a reputation that travels with you. Help is useful. Dependence without alternatives is dangerous. The unsupported man must build a life where no single person gets to decide whether he collapses. That is not domination over others. That is protection against captivity. But alternatives mean little if nobody can see what you are capable of. Which brings us to the mistake ambitious men hate admitting. Rule 5. Accumulate proof before demanding recognition. You may be underestimated. You may also be unproven. Stop confusing the two. Your family cannot invest in potential. They cannot measure. A client cannot pay for the talent hidden inside your head. A market cannot reward effort it cannot see. An employer cannot negotiate with your private belief that you deserve more. You want respect? Produce evidence, revenue, results, case studies, a body of work, skills that can be demonstrated, problems solved, numbers improved, people helped, things shipped. The unsupported man has less room for fantasy because nobody is standing behind his promise. He cannot keep negotiating with the world through intention. He cannot keep saying, "They do not understand me," when he has built nothing visible enough to force understanding. He cannot keep confusing hidden ability with market value. That sounds brutal. It is also liberating, because proof does not need emotional permission. Proof changes the conversation without begging anyone to change their opinion. Potential asks to be believed. Proof changes the cost of disbelief. That line should bother you if you have spent years waiting to be understood. Because maybe the problem is not that nobody believes in you. Maybe the problem is that believing in you still costs them nothing. If your work is invisible, ignoring it is easy. If your skill is unmeasured, doubting it is easy. If your ambition lives only in private conversations, dismissing it is easy. If your plan has no evidence, rejecting it is easy. Do not ask them to see the man in your imagination. Build the proof that makes the old judgment expensive. And if you are the right viewer, this is where false progress has to stop. You already know that consuming ideas, announcing plans, and feeling temporarily powerful is not the same as becoming undeniable. The real problem is not lack of motivation. It is lack of structure, proof, positioning, discipline, leverage, and self-command. On Patreon, I go deeper into the private frameworks behind these doctrines, how to build proof, position yourself, control your attention, create leverage, and stop confusing motion with progress. It is not for men who want comfort. It is for men ready to confront the gap between who they claim to be and what their evidence proves. The decision is yours, but proof creates another danger. When the proof is still fragile, the wrong exposure can kill the structure before it is strong enough to stand. Rule 6. Keep strategic plans private until they become durable. Silence is not magic, and everyone around you is not secretly your enemy. That is childish paranoia. But premature disclosure has a cost. Researchers Peter Gollwitzer and colleagues ran studies on identity-related intentions. When people notice someone's intentions, those intentions were sometimes translated into action less intensely. One proposed reason was that public recognition created a premature feeling of already possessing the desired identity. That should disturb you. Because some men announce the business before they have customers. They announce the transformation before they have discipline. They announce the resignation before they have an exit. They announce the vision because speaking about becoming powerful temporarily feels like becoming powerful. This is one of the most dangerous traps for the unsupported man. He does not have enough proof yet, but he wants the feeling of being taken seriously. So he talks, he explains, he reveals the plan too early. He gives people a chance to judge the seed before it has roots. Then their doubt enters his mind before the structure has become durable enough to resist it. And even when people mean well, premature opinions can weaken execution. Your family may judge your ambition through fear. Your friends may judge it through the old version of you. Your co-workers may judge it through the limits of their own appetite for risk. A stranger may judge it before he understands the context. And suddenly, instead of building, you are defending. Instead of executing, you are explaining. Instead of collecting proof, you are collecting emotional reactions from people who do not have to pay the price of your life. Keep the seed protected until it has roots. Share strategically when sharing creates accountability, resources, expertise, coordination, distribution, or opportunity. But if you are explaining your unfinished ambition merely to feel legitimate, stop. The world does not need your declaration, it needs your evidence. Because if the plan is real, it will not need applause in its weakest stage. It will need silence, structure, repetition, and proof. But even proof and privacy are not enough if you keep ignoring the structure that benefits from your stagnation. Rule 7. Ask who wins if you remain where you are. This question will expose situations your emotions keep disguising. Who benefits if nothing changes? Your employer may prefer the talented employee who never negotiates. A client may prefer the freelancer terrified of losing the account. A social group may prefer the version of you whose ambition never threatens the old hierarchy. A family may sincerely love you and still prefer the path that feels safer to them. That does not automatically make these people malicious. It makes them human. People interpret situations through their own incentives, fears, and costs. Your stagnation can benefit someone without there being a conspiracy. This is where immature men become paranoid. They decide everyone is jealous, everyone is threatened, everyone is plotting. That is not power. That is emotional laziness wearing dark clothing. The strategic man does not need to invent villains. He studies incentives. The employer does not have to hate you to underpay you. If your reliability gives him stability and your silence keeps his costs low, your stagnation becomes convenient. The client does not have to disrespect you consciously. If he can demand more while paying the same and you keep accepting it, Your fear becomes part of his business model. Your social circle does not have to sabotage you. If your growth makes them confront their own lack of movement, they may quietly prefer the older, smaller version of you. Even family can love you and still resist the version of you that requires uncertainty. Their advice may be sincere. Their fear may be real. Their caution may come from experience. But love does not automatically equal accurate strategy. So stop asking only, do they support me? Ask, what outcome is easiest for them if I stay exactly as I am? That question changes everything. Now you are not begging for approval, you are reading the room. You are analyzing structure instead of reacting to emotion. You are seeing the hidden contracts that were never spoken aloud. And once you see who benefits from your stagnation, you must confront a harder truth. Sometimes the person keeping you trapped is not the employer, the client, the family, or the group. Sometimes it is the part of you that would rather remain dependent than endure temporary loneliness. Rule 8. Never let temporary loneliness choose permanent dependence. Loneliness creates urgency. Urgency lowers standards, and lowered standards create chains. You accept the wrong business partner because building alone is exhausting. You remain with the wrong employer because uncertainty feels worse. You attach yourself to people who repeatedly disrespect you because being connected feels safer than being alone. Then the temporary discomfort you tried to escape becomes permanent dependence. This is not only about relationships. This is about every weak alliance a man forms because he is tired of standing alone. A man can become dependent on a bad job because he fears the silence of rebuilding. He can become dependent on a weak partner because he fears being unseen. He can become dependent on a client who abuses his time because he fears losing income. He can become dependent on a social group that mocks his ambition because isolation feels like punishment. He can become dependent on anyone who gives him a temporary sense of belonging while quietly taxing his future. The wrong alliance can cost more than solitude. Yes, you need people. No serious man builds anything meaningful without allies, customers, mentors, partners, employees, friends, or collaborators. But needing people is not the same as surrendering your future to the first person who makes loneliness quieter. The strategic question is not, do I need people? Of course you do. The question is, am I choosing this alliance because it increases capability, or because I am terrified of standing alone for another 6 months? That question cuts through the lie. Strategic cooperation makes you stronger. Emotional surrender makes you smaller. Strategic cooperation increases your options. Emotional surrender reduces them. Strategic cooperation is chosen from clarity. Emotional surrender is chosen from panic. Never confuse the two. If you are unsupported, you must be careful with your hunger for connection. The need to be understood can make you easy to recruit into weak agreements. The need to be wanted can make you tolerate disrespect. The need to belong can make you betray the man you are trying to become. Choose allies from strength whenever possible, not from panic. Because the highest quality decisions do not merely solve today's discomfort, they give your future self more power. Rule 9. Make every major decision increase. Future options. This is where the rules become one system. Machiavelli wrote that fortune is the arbiter of one half of our actions, while still leaving part of events within human control. He compared fortune to a flooding river. You cannot prevent every flood, but you can prepare barriers while conditions are calm. That is the unsupported man's doctrine. You cannot control layoffs, markets, betrayal, algorithms, illness in the family, recessions, a client disappearing, a company restructuring, another person changing his mind. But you can decide how many ways one event is allowed to destroy you. Every major decision should therefore answer one question: does this increase or reduce my future options? A useful skill increases options. Savings increase options. Portable reputation increases options. Owning distribution increases options. Learning to sell increases options. A direct audience increases options. Documented proof increases options. Multiple relationships increase options. But debt may reduce options. Burning bridges unnecessarily reduces options. Depending on one customer reduces options. Depending on one platform reduces options. Depending on one employer reduces options. Depending on approval reduces options. Remaining invisible reduces options. The strongest move is often not the one with the biggest immediate reward. It is the one that gives tomorrow's version of you more moves. That is power, not domination over everyone else. Room to move. The unsupported man should become obsessed with optionality. Not because he is afraid of life, but because he respects reality. If you have no rescue, you need more routes, more proof, more skills, more ways to recover, more ways to negotiate, more ways to leave, more ways to rebuild when the world changes without asking your permission. This is what separates fragile ambition from resilient ambition. Fragile ambition needs one plan to work. Resilient ambition builds a life where one failed plan does not own the entire future. Now run your next major decision through the no rescue test. Question 1. If this fails completely, can I survive the failure without needing someone to rescue me? Not comfortably. Survive. This question destroys fantasy. It does not ask whether the decision feels exciting. It does not ask whether the move makes you look brave. It asks whether the failure would leave you standing. If the failure would erase your savings, reputation, health, relationships, and ability to think clearly, you are not making a bold decision. You are creating a collapse point. Question 2. Does this decision reduce a dangerous dependency or create a new one? Look at money, gatekeepers, approval, debt, platforms, people. Some decisions feel like freedom because they remove one chain while quietly creating another. You leave one boss and become dependent on one client. You leave one platform and become dependent on one algorithm. You leave one relationship and immediately enter another because solitude feels unbearable. You reject family approval but become addicted to praise from strangers. That is not sovereignty. That is changing owners. Question 3. If conditions change 6 months from now, will I have more options or fewer? This question reveals the quality of the move. If the market shifts, do you still have skills? If the client leaves, do you still have routes to income? If the platform changes, do you still have access to your audience? If people doubt you, do you still have proof? If the plan fails, do you still have dignity, cash, reputation, health, and room to move? If the answer is, I can survive it, it reduces dependency and it expands future options. You may have a resilient decision. But if the plan requires everything to go right, one person to remain loyal, one source of income to survive, one prediction to come true, and someone to catch you if it fails, that is not courage. That is fragility wearing the clothes of ambition. The unsupported man has to abandon one fantasy, that his decisions deserve to be judged by the same margin of error as someone with inherited protection. Your standard is different. And once you accept that, your lack of support stops being merely a wound. It becomes intelligence. You become harder to corner because you build exits. Harder to control because you build alternatives. Harder to dismiss because you build proof. Harder to destroy because no single failure owns your entire future. You are no longer trying to look fearless. You are becoming difficult to trap. That is the real transformation, not loud independence, not romantic isolation, not pretending you need no one, not gambling your life to prove you are brave. The stronger man is colder than that. He protects survival from ego. He builds exits before desperation. He separates reversible from irreversible decisions. He refuses single gatekeepers. He accumulates proof before demanding recognition. He keeps fragile plans private until they become durable. He studies who benefits from his stagnation. He refuses to let loneliness choose dependence. He makes every major decision increase future options. That is how abandonment becomes structure. That is how structure becomes leverage. That is how leverage becomes freedom. Your next move does not need to look impressive to people who are not responsible for the consequences. It needs to survive reality. So do this now. Take the decision you have been delaying, romanticizing, or explaining to yourself and run it through the no rescue test. Write down whether it helps you survive failure, reduce dependency, and increase future options. If it fails those questions, stop calling it courage until you rebuild the structure around it. Machiavelli observed that the man who relied least on fortune was established the strongest. That is the standard, not certainty. Preparation, not reckless courage. Resilience, not refusing all help. Making sure your life does not collapse when help disappears. Stop asking whether the next move looks brave. Ask whether it leaves you stronger if the world gives you nothing afterward. Build as though rescue is unavailable. Build so. Eventually, rescue becomes unnecessary.